A lot of fundraising is done in the paranormal field. Usually it's teams raising money for a certain location. But in this instance, it's the owner who has stepped up to the plate. Robin Terry is the owner of Ashmore Estates, and over the course of his ownership, he's done a lot to help the Lost Limbs Foundation.
I got involved with the Lost Limbs Foundation about 5 or 6 years ago, back in like 2012, 2013, with Mike Couch, doing some charity work with him through the Mystery Machine at a convention I went to with him. Been doing a lot of stuff ever since then. Lost Limbs Foundation helps amputee children, helps their families, and the children out there when they need prosthetics. Prosthetics are very expensive, and the kids outgrow them just like they do a pair of shoes. So they have to get fitted for new prosthetics about every 6 months to a year. So it's an expensive venture, and we're very proud and very happy to be able to hold Mike and these children with the ownership between the Ashmore Estates and Mystery Machine, with making things happen for the children to get their prosthetics as they need them.
We reached out to Robin and set up a live stream investigation as a fundraiser to show our support for the Lost Limbs Foundation. We also invited some friends, Dan Williams of the Paranormal Research Institute and Mary Marshall, also known as the Paranormal MD. We were also joined by Justin and Brooke Wallace, but before jumping into the investigation, here's a little history on Ashmore Estates.
When I bought Ashmore Estates, I bought it with the knowledge of knowing that it was a prior poor farm as well as a mental hospital. It was never an asylum, where asylum, they don't help people. Poor farms and the hospital actually were out there to help these people. It was a poor farm until about 1959, and then it became a psychiatric hospital for a while, and then they expanded it and added on to it in the 70s, and it was continued to be a hospital until sometime in the around the middle 80s, and it was shut down and sat pretty much vacant until it was picked up as a haunted house. And then I purchased the property in 2014, and we basically cleaned it, gutted it, and turned it into an area, just a building for paranormal investigations only. The building's kind of interesting in a way. There's a couple of stories that we can actually prove through newspaper articles. And those are the ones we normally talk about when we're doing historical tours. We have one with Elva Skinner, who perished because of the results of a burn. That was back about 1880s or so. And when the fire started, she was getting ready for breakfast, and she was the only one upstairs, and her dress caught fire. And when that happened, then she died as a result of the fire and the burns from that. And she was just short of her 5th birthday, and died from the results of that burn. She's actually buried at Ashmore, Illinois, in the Ashmore Cemetery. The other person that we've talked about some is Joe Boxham. Joe was kind of like the maintenance worker here, because when he was at the poor farm and the mental hospital, they tried to get people jobs to help them further their growth and all, and trying to bring them out, help them out as much as they could mentally. So they gave Joe the opportunity to do that. He was the groundskeeper, kind of took care of the place. And he hung out probably a lot in the boiler room and the maintenance room downstairs. And I think that when people go there, they feel him down there because that's his area, his territory. And I don't think he likes people down there messing with it, especially women. And he doesn't like any women down there for the most part. So those are the two stories we primarily talk about, because we can actually prove that. Joe was hit by a train outside of, I think it was Kansas, Illinois, and as he was walking back, somebody picked him up and brought him back to the facility, and he died here at the facility because of the results of being hit by a train. And I think they kind of like clipped him when he went by. It didn't like hit him, head on or something like that, but just caused some internal injuries and all, and he died here at the building. And so I think Joe still hangs around the building quite a bit. The buildings actually had some different situations too. There was an article I saw in a newspaper, it's probably been back in the 20s or 30s, when there was a baseball player that lived here while he was doing some rehab. So it wasn't just a matter of that they had anybody that were basically just either poor or had mental issues and things like that. They also used the facility as a kind of a rehab center. He didn't have the money to go someplace else because he was playing what we probably consider single A baseball today. And he was here. And the only article I've ever seen written that they talk about the inside of the place. He talked about having the food they had here. He said was great. He said that they worked while they were here. He did some rehab. He was talking about the owners of the place, the superintendent at that time that helped and did stuff, and they all had their jobs and worked here. And I think it was a fun atmosphere. It was about as much fun as you could possibly have while you were sitting here. But I think that these people that lived in this building, this was their home. And I think they considered it and looked at it that way. And they enjoyed day-to-day living here because this is all they had, and they knew that was going to be the situation for the rest of their lives.
I had an experience a couple of years ago at an event called Ash Bash. I was covering my eyes and asking someone to sit in a chair and talk to me when I heard a chair slide on the floor. None of the chairs in front of me had moved, but when I used the camera to see, I found that a chair from the hall had moved into the doorway. What? Other investigators have had similar experiences, and Dan Williams, one of our guests, was one of them.
So I'm Dan Williams, founder and director of the Paranormal Research Institute, and basically what we're doing is trying to scientifically prove the paranormal activity. We're trying to track and prove exactly what goes on, and it's been a challenge. It's been interesting. So I personally have been here 5 times, I think, now, and we've had a lot of disembodied voices. I have been attacked, actually, in this room. More not a malicious attack, more it seemed like someone just wanted to fight for fun, but ended up with the full breath of the nasty broken teeth, cigar, whiskey kind of breath breathing in my face, wanting to fight. That was interesting. I've had my name on recorders, which is cool. Always comes through when it came through on one channel of a 2-channel recorder. A lot of shadows, a lot of action, a lot of motion.
We've had a lot of different paranormal teams come to the building. They all have their own experiences, some in the same locations, some in different locations, some by male, some by females. It really all depends on who's here and what they're investigating. Some of the interesting things that they've had is we had a balloon that was on the 3rd floor that became untied about 6:15 in the morning and floated straight up. You can see it on video. It'd been there since 9 o'clock the night before, and it just floated up. We've had another person that in the boiler room, they got knocked down to his, knocked off his feet. One of the girls in the room saw his feet come up off the ground, and he got knocked backwards. Brad Kling, when he was shooting an episode out here for Strange Curiosity, had about a 25-degree temperature drop while he was trying to confront the spirit that might have knocked the gentleman off his feet. We've had a lot of moving chairs, door slams, a lot of voices, a lot of disembodied voices, as well as just people that hear things with their own ears, and EVPs that they've caught on camera or on film, and or just on a digital recorder. So there's a lot of different things on the grounds, outside, as well as in the building. So it's kind of an interesting location for people, no matter what kind of equipment you bring in.
We started the investigation with an experiment by Robin, followed by Mary and Brooke, who conducted an EVP session on the 3rd floor. Meanwhile, John and Justin went to the boiler room.
It's recording. Okay. You've been here a lot, so you've got a lot of experiences, so you can fire off some questions.
Okay, first things first. Miss Elva, are you here? Did you find the ball that we left you the last time? What's your favorite animal? Is it a puppy?
Okay, heading down to the boiler room.
Is there an old man that hides down there?
A short time into their session, what sounds like a voice can be heard.
Is there an old man that hides down there in the boiler room like people say? Well, I guess you're the old guy that hides in that back room and watches people. You like watching people? Would you like us to come in your back room back there where you hide at? We could gladly come in there. You know, if you don't want us to come in there, you can knock on something and we'll know not to come in there. But you have to give us a sign that you don't want us to come in there.
After a short break, we broke into groups. John and Dan went upstairs while Mary and I started in the boiler room. During their session upstairs, Dan and John noticed something very strange.
The acoustic anomalies that John and I experienced while you and Mary were down in the boiler room, and we're on the third floor and we're hearing you whisper, and then when you're yelling for us, you know, and we're testing it and you're yelling our names and we can't hear you, you know, and it's moving around from inside the building and that. I mean, it's definitely an anomaly, so I found that pretty fascinating.
Soon after their experience, I had an encounter that would startle anyone.
For some reason I'm drawn to like this back part here, like
Okay.
as if somebody was hiding, you know. You're rolling?
Yeah.
Alright.
I want to say hello if you can hear my voice. I'm not one to be afraid of. You're more than welcome to come talk to me. Not here to hurt you, not here to scare you. Just came here to talk. I hear there's a man that stays down here around the boiler. Why don't you come towards my voice and... Fuck that.
What just happened?
Something grabbed my arm.
Did it really?
Yeah, you should be able to see on camera too. Let's stop this so I can look at that. Trying to remain skeptical, I thought I bumped part of the boiler. But the fact that I felt what seemed like fingers wrapping around my elbow leaves me scratching my head. So now, what I was saying is Dan's going to do the sensory overload. We're going to stick him down in the boiler room. He is going to be overloaded with sight and sound, and he's going to remain there for 20 minutes. And he's just going to see what he sees or hears. So this is going to be an interesting experiment. We've done this with Josh Hurd on previous videos.
He's not gonna like throw up or something, is he? Alright.
It's part of the experiment.
Make him throw up.
While in the boiler room, Dan is to remain seated. During this time, we exploited his vision with a strobe light, and for his hearing, we blasted pink noise to distort his hearing. His job was to sit for 15 minutes and explore his senses. In this moment on the DVR, we noticed that the light paused unexpectedly for a short period of time. This was one of many things that Dan would come to tell us about after the experiment was over.
How was your experience? Let's
It was
switch this around.
actually interesting. It was for a while it was just chilly, and then it got really cold, and then it felt like there was fingers. Like you guys probably saw me moving around
Yeah,
like that and
yeah.
stuff. Felt like somebody was just running their fingers down my
Ew.
back and across the back of my neck, and then I don't know if you heard me say it, but at one point it sounded like it sounded like a bunch of women singing like a hymn or chanting.
Oh, wow.
It was,
Bizarre
absolutely
experience.
above the level of the white noise. So,
Wow.
but yeah, it was really interesting and really long. It was cold, first of all, but the overload, your brain hits a point where you start seeing things. I was seeing fogs, and I was, you get into it looks like the light's changing patterns and changing in intensity, and I mean, it's not, but it feels like it. And the white noise, at one point it sounded like a group of women either singing or chanting. It almost sounded like they were singing a hymn. And none of that obviously is picked up on the recorder. It's a mental thing, but trying to keep in mind that your senses are lying to you while you're freezing is really interesting. And then partway through it, I felt things, start running their fingers over my shoulders and playing with my hair and things like that. Now, how much of that was actually going on? I mean, that seemed like that was probably actually going on, but was it triggered by the sensory overload? I don't know, but it was fascinating.
So as we're playing this lovely music, I wooed after one of the songs and heard laughter coming down from this other end over here. Caught it on recorder, so I'm pretty excited about that.
With Mary on the third floor, myself on the second, and everyone else on the first, I immediately tried to find the source. After syncing all the video, I was able to confirm that the culprit behind the laugh was indeed Mary Marshall. The rest of the night was quiet. Although some audio was captured, we were able to debunk it upon review. With so many paranormal teams experiencing a variety of activity, it's safe to say that someone could remain at this location. We were honored to do what we were able to raise funds for the Lost Limbs Foundation. Robin Terry has found an amazing way to assist this great cause by preserving Ashmore Estates and allowing others to experience its haunting history.
Well, this place is absolutely consistently responsive. If someone has never investigated before and they want to, spend the money to come out here because you're going to get results. You really aren't going to investigate in a nicer haunted location. What do they call it? The paranormal Hilton, because you don't trip over. You're not crawling over rubble. You're not going to fall through floors. You're not going to do half the dumb shit that we do as investigators here. It's a great introduction. They do a lot of programs to help people understand the paranormal. So, highly recommend Ashmore anytime.
At Ashmore, what we try to do is we try to do some different type of events that others don't do. We have probably the one that we do that nobody that I've seen really does is we do a Kids Day. We do one generally in April or May. We do one in October. We have a couple teams that come in and help us out. They put that on, and they bring the kids in as well as their parents. It's all done during the day. We actually teach the kids what the paranormal is all about and how to deal with it. And I think we're actually teaching the parents as well, because the parents don't know how to handle a situation when their son or daughter sees an imaginary friend and they don't know how to handle that. So I think we're educating the parents as well as the kids. That we do as a 100% donation to Lost Limbs Foundation, and we've done it like that. And the two teams that come in and help me have agreed to do that as well, and we'll always do it like that. We also do 101 days on each month, starting in April through October, where we have a different team come in each month. They do a 2-hour lecture on paranormal, like 101, and what it's all about. And they do an investigation then from like 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. just to help, and it's interactive with the team. So people that don't know how to investigate or have never investigated, want to investigate, can come out and do something like that. Another thing we've done that a lot of places don't do is daytime investigations. The paranormal happens 24/7. It doesn't start at midnight or doesn't start at 6 p.m. or when the lights go out. It's there all day long. And so we've kind of captured some of that and done some of that. We've had teams that only will investigate now during the day because they've had so much activity that they've picked up during the day. So we do that quite a bit. We do some celebrity events, and when we host them ourselves, we try to keep the numbers down to as small as we possibly can to basically take care of the expenses and people to have a good time. Private investigations, we do those quite often, as well as tours, usually towards more October when everybody kind of gets the paranormal bug, and we do those in October, but we do private tours all the time as well. So basically we've done some weddings, we've got a couple coming up sometime sure soon, and we've done photo shoots, we've done filming, we've done quite a bit. The building's pretty much open. If you can think of something you want to do and a location to do it in, we can probably make that work.